Welcome to another Zcash Gardening Club. It is March again. It's been quite a year. So Zcash Gardening Club is a meeting Electric Coin Company started last year to sort of connect open source developers who are doing work on projects in or around the Zcash ecosystem. And last year, it had a format that was basically just open mic style round robin lightning talks. So people would give 5-minute presentations about their projects, and then we would have some discussion. That format is great, so we're keeping that. But this year, we're also introducing longer presentations that are a bit more deep dive. So they're just about 15 minutes typically. And if you're interested in giving any of those longer presentations, please get in touch with us. We can schedule those ahead of time. And so this, if we go on to the agenda of this meeting, we have some exciting presentations lined up. So we have Brian Hoffman from Open Bazaar, and we're gonna hear about that project and what we can learn from that project. And I'm really excited about that. And then we also will be hearing from Matthew about Gemini and how to use viewing keys, or how they use viewing keys. So I'm super excited about those. And then after that, we're doing the same open mic format. So anyone who wants to give like a 5-minute update on any open source projects they're working on that are related to Zcash peripherally, please speak up in the chat. And we're gonna try not to go over. So there's only three, enough time for 3 slots there. So if you're interested, speak up soon so you can get in the door. Cool. And then, yeah, that's it for announcements. So let's jump in and hear from Brian. So are you here, Brian? Can you speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, there you are. Hi
Okay.
there. Nice
Hi.
background.
Yes, thank you. It's better than what's behind it.
Welcome. So yeah, I just wanted to do a quick intro. So Brian is from OB1 and the Open Bazaar project, and that is a project that me and some of the other Zcash folks have always been excited about because we've always been very excited about cryptocurrency as a means of exchange for real life brick and mortar interactions and economic transactions between folks. And that is exactly what Open Bazaar focuses on. So I'm really excited to have him come and share about Open Bazaar. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Can I just quickly share? I have
Yes.
okay. Okay, let's see. So I'm not good at pontificating for hours, so you won't have to struggle through this. I just have some slides to help me remember what I'm talking about here. But essentially, I just a couple quick things. You mentioned that I worked on a project called Open Bazaar. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of how we got to building the marketplace, and then some of the things we learned, and what I think other people could take away from that and take with them as into the future to create more opportunities for not just Zcash users but other crypto users, in light of the fact that most usage at this point in time is kind of speculative. It'd be nice to see things in other areas take off. So just real quick, I mean, my background, computer science background, engineer by trade, worked for over a decade with different corporations and classified agencies, all kinds of work doing cybersecurity work, which led into my interest in Bitcoin. Eventually, through the work of open source software on Open Bazaar, was able to secure venture capital funding from Andreessen Horowitz, Union Square Ventures, a couple other really great venture capital firms, and quit all that work and leave it behind to start my own enterprise as OB1. And for those who don't really understand what Open Bazaar is, Open Bazaar started in 2014. It was essentially the first truly peer-to-peer crypto-centric e-commerce marketplace. So you could think of it as eBay, meets Amazon, meets crypto, and and then had a baby with BitTorrent. So it was kind of all those things together. And it's a fully functional multi-currency crypto. It had a crypto wallet that supported multiple currencies. Initially, we only supported Bitcoin, but then we expanded to several of the Bitcoin based currencies, including Zcash and Litecoin. And eventually we supported Ethereum. It also had a decentralized social network built in, where you could follow people and use the end-to-end encrypted messaging to chat with people. All of this was built as components of the overall marketplace, things that you would come to expect from any normal e-commerce shopping experience, being able to talk between merchants and buyers and things like that. So Open Bazaar was kind of ahead of the time. There was no such thing as a DApp at that point, even though it kind of was one of the first DApps, so to speak. So what was OB1 in relation to that? Well, as I said earlier, Open Bazaar started out as just like a volunteer-based open source project. And as it gained traction, we were able to get the funding, and we started a company called OB1. And OB1 was basically building tools and software on top of Open Bazaar. We had a mobile app called Haven. It ran on iOS and Android. We had the Open Bazaar application. We had openbazaar.com, which was kind of like a online read-only version of the network. And then we had a bunch of different infrastructure components that we built to support the network as well, that you can see in this list. Haven was something that we were super proud of because it took us a long time to get there. We wanted to be on mobile from the beginning, but in order to build a completely peer-to-peer software that would comply with the App Store requirements and constraints, it was very challenging. In fact, we got booted out of the Apple Store for over a month at one point in time because of the fact that we were supporting crypto commerce and they weren't sure what was going on there. We miraculously got back in, but we learned a lot about the challenges of having a decentralized application reside in the centralized app stores. And I could probably go on for hours talking about problems with that and why that sucks. But suffice it to say, we did manage to get the entire peer-to-peer software running on the mobile device. And one of the great things that pioneered that I'm hoping people will take forward in the future is that it ran a complete node on the device, had the wallet, had all your keys, had all your messages, had all your purchases. Everything was stored on the device. There was no centralized server that OB1 ran or Open Bazaar ran where your data was stored. It was all within you. Now, there's obviously limitations to that kind of setup. You delete the app or the data, or you destroy your phone, you kind of lose that. But that's the same with cryptocurrency wallets in general. And but the fact that you could run an autonomous node on your device, lightweight, was really interesting, and it took us several years to get that working. So what were we even trying to solve to begin with? Now you know what we were building. Well, first and foremost, we were interested in proliferating and bringing awareness to Bitcoin in general. I mean, the project started in late 2013, early 2014, and it still goes on in some form right now. But back then, there wasn't really much other than people kind of creating wallets or having like centralized exchanges. That was pretty much the use case for Bitcoin at the time. And we wanted to give people another reason to want to use these currencies, because we thought that would create value for Bitcoin. It would make it bigger and better and help grow the community. We also felt like there was a need for some kind of anonymous, secure online e-commerce. And we felt like the tools existed to make that happen. We had, peer-to-peer technology that was working great with BitTorrent, for file sharing, data sharing. We have cryptography, public key cryptography that was working obviously really well with cryptocurrency, but like there was no common language that you could conduct commerce over. The closest thing that you could see happening was like Silk Road. And obviously there were like severe limitations with that model in terms of keeping it decentralized and global. We also felt like there were a lot of downsides to having e-commerce be completely controlled by centralized gatekeepers like Amazon. Obviously they can extract huge fees, put constraints on the marketplace, limit it geographically. There's just tons of reasons why a decentralized solution might be more elegant than what they're doing. Yeah, so those are just a few of the problems that we're trying to solve, which are huge problems. So I kind of talked about this, so I won't belabor the point. But essentially, we feel very strongly that decentralized marketplaces are much better than centralized ones because of the things that you're seeing on these slides. So some other motivations that we had as we looked at like what was out there and how we wanted to be better than what existed was, in general, crypto software at the time sucked. It was built by really, really smart people, and a lot of times really, really smart people don't make very, very good software for mainstream users. It's just mostly experimental, or it's just, it's for what they want to use it for, not necessarily what the average mainstream user might want. And so we wanted to figure out how could we take all these things that were great about decentralization and couple it with an amazing UX so that anybody could take advantage of it without having to understand and read white papers and do all these complicated things. So good ideas, good execution, hopefully with a good result. We knew that Bitcoin users wanted to hold Bitcoin, but we also wanted to give them an opportunity to earn Bitcoin. There weren't a lot of opportunities. A lot of people were like, how do I get Bitcoin? We didn't want to keep sending them to Coinbase to like hook up their bank accounts and exchange it and buy it with fiat. We wanted them to have some more organic way of earning crypto. And so commerce seemed like a good model. It is important to note that at the time that Open Bazaar started, a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain was about 3 cents. So almost free. And in fact, part of the early pitch with Open Bazaar was that it was free to transact on Open Bazaar. That obviously changed dramatically very quickly. Most of the other dApps as the years went on are janky, filled with defects. And to be honest, there are tons of them out there right now that are still really janky and not great. There's still a lot of room to improve. And users don't really care that it's hard to build this stuff. It doesn't matter. Some of the things that are the most mainstream right now, things like NBA Top Shot, which is going after mainstream users, for instance, in the Nifty space, it's still pretty hard to use. And I don't think that users fully grok that, across the whole ecosystem. And then finally, governance kind of sucked. It was very hard to get people to participate, but having something like Open Bazaar that got so much excitement early on, we really wanted to try and figure out ways to get people more involved. And I think that feeds right into like this group, for instance, with Zcash and the community you guys have built, finding ways to incentivize people to participate more, giving grants. All that stuff was not even really possible back in 2014. I mean, I think the biggest grant or biggest crowdfund that had been done for open source software at the time was $50,000 for Dark Wallet. And as Amir Taki, the founder of that project, said, it's barely enough to buy sausages to survive. So it's a far stretch from the hundreds of millions of dollars that some projects raised in the ICO timeframe. So some problems that we ran into while we were building Open Bazaar. The big one, no one really wants to give up their crypto. It's so great. I mean, it's just, it goes up in value. It's awesome. And no one wants to give it away. So, in a two-sided marketplace like e-commerce, it's hard when one side of the equation is not really willing to part with what they need to. We had tons and tons of merchant support. People were very interested in participating because they wanted Bitcoin, but the buyers simply didn't want to spend it. If you sold a T-shirt on Open Bazaar for $15 back when we started, I think we did the calculations, and it's somewhere around $20,000. I think that crypto would have been worth today. So it's kind of crazy how things have changed since then. Our trust model in the software was really kind of new because you don't have a centralized party. There's no one to go and complain to. There's no customer support system really, other than the developers. So if you didn't have a bug, if you were just complaining about a merchant or a buyer, um, you know that was kind of up to the users to try and sort out. And that's something that I don't think we ever fully did a good job of solving. We did use multi-signature contracts in order to create less risk, where funds would go into escrow and prevent people from just walking away with money. But at the same time, there's still the human elements of shipping packages, receiving them, accepting delivery, releasing funds, things like that. Peer-to-peer software has lots of connectivity and stability issues. Those have gotten way better over the years. Back when we started, BitTorrent was probably one of the only real solid P2P decentralized protocols, and there weren't a lot of other options. Eventually, we moved to IPFS and libp2p, which is really great and works really, really well now, and is pretty prevalent across the dApp space. We never did end up able to get a good web experience. And, I think one of the reasons why Ethereum and similar technologies have done so well is because of things like MetaMask and being able to do everything in the browser without having to install applications. OpenBazaar was always a pretty heavyweight application to download to your computer and install. And when you think of online shopping, you don't think of downloading an app to your desktop and running all these a node and doing all these things, right? Like the most frictionless experience would be something that's in the web. And I don't think that we still haven't really seen anything like that that's truly decentralized within the Bitcoin, Litecoin, Zcash, kind of realm, which is something I'd love to be able to, love to see in the future. And also supporting multiple currencies. Due to the fees and increasing over time, we ended up having to decide to support multiple currencies because it doesn't make much sense to sell a $20 t-shirt with $35 fees. We started adding more and more currencies, but that only kind of punts things down the road somewhat. Things like Ethereum now have really expensive fees. It's really just a product of being popular. And I think, hopefully in the future, we'll see layer 2 solutions come in and help out with that. So what do I think is some of the problems that it's preventing this decentralized commerce from blowing up? Well, I think a lot of it is really just the fact that Ethereum and these types of technologies have done so well. I mean, digital goods commerce is easier, it's faster, it doesn't require human intervention. It's just more conducive to cryptocurrencies at the moment. And a lot of that is because traditional platforms don't support crypto as well as they could. It requires integration with packing, shipping services, suppliers for products and goods, things like that. And they're just not up to speed with it. It's much easier to just create a digital asset, sell it on a digital blockchain, and go back and forth. Speculation is another really big piece of it. It creates a volatile landscape. And when you're pricing goods and trying to sell goods that you have to pay for, and to pay your suppliers, and you have to create a business off of it, it's tough when the price of your t-shirt is going up or down by 75% every day or every hour in some cases. So those are just some of the reasons why I think we're still not ready for this. So what do I think we would see that would improve this? better peer-to-peer lightweight wallet solutions. Just like I said, MetaMask is an example of something that has created a very smooth, frictionless situation for people to use web dApps. Now, the bad thing here is that that's painfully centralized. It relies on Infura, um, and most people don't care. But I would like to see something more decentralized in the future, and I hope that people will work with this. There's a kind of an interesting project called Joule that rides on top of Lightning, that provides a MetaMask type of extension for your browser, but it requires you to run a node. It'd be interesting to see more research and development in this area, in my opinion. And then I'd also like to see some of these, other blockchains figure out better ways to put incentives and participatory rewards on top of these cryptos. You know, a lot of people make fun of tokens and call them shit coins or whatever, but like in a lot of ways, they're providing the incentives that are necessary for people to get involved. It's debatable on whether or not those are actually people using crypto for productive use cases that are outside of speculation. But I think eventually those will get nailed, and they're going to need to be there in order for people to want to switch away from legacy platforms and non-decentralized options. Price stability, stablecoin options, that's another thing, is like being able to price your goods in something that's stable. Now, this could come from either cryptocurrencies in general just becoming more mature and stable on their own, or it could be through like stable coins like I mentioned. But either way, that's another big concern for commerce. And then Lightning Layer 2. I think those things are going to advance, over the next few years, and will make a really big impact on scalability and bring down fees for these kinds of transactions, especially lower cost ones that are usually seen in e-commerce. Most people are not buying $40,000-$50,000 items over Amazon. So hopefully you found that insightful a little bit. Shows just a very surface level view of what we kind of experienced within Open Bazaar and building that. And but I think that there's a lot to think about, and hopefully it serves as a foundation for the future and what's to come. And we're really excited to keep going and have lots of ideas for where we might take it next. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. We're going to move on to the next presentation, but I hope you can stick around in case there's time at the end for Q&A. I picked up a lot there, so yeah, we'll have to chat more. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, I think we have Matthew from Gemini, and he's going to talk about Gemini and their support for some of the Zcash shielded features.
Matthew, do you have a deck to share? Can I go ahead and stop my screen share for you?
Yeah, that'd be great. I think
Awesome.
MD and Doug are going to do the presenting, and they have the deck to put up. But I'm here for questions.
Okay, great. Hi. So yes, my name is Douglas Rourke. I'm in Portland, Oregon. I work for Gemini, and we're here to do a presentation today on Zcash shielded withdrawals. I'll be co-presenting with MD Islam. And real quickly, we're just going to go over the agenda. Who is Gemini? What's our level of Zcash support? Manners by which we're able to leverage open source software in order to handle crypto required for Zcash support. And this involves like viewing keys and other very interesting cryptography. Talk a little bit about some Easter eggs, and then I guess we'll save the Q&A for the end. So Gemini, who are we? Gemini is a cryptocurrency exchange and custodian that emphasizes full regulation with authorities, making sure our licenses dot our I's, cross our T's. Some of the entities we've worked with include, but are not limited to, the New York Department of Financial Services. They're the ones that came up with BIT licenses a long time ago, and the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK. We were actually the first regulated exchange to support withdrawals to Zcash shielded addresses, which I think surprised a lot of people because people thought, well, it's shielded, so we can't support it. Well, no, we can. We have supported transparent Zcash withdrawals since 2018, and just last year we added the withdrawals to the shielded addresses, also, as mentioned earlier, I'm Douglas Rourke, MD Islam will be presenting in a few minutes. I just want to take a little time to do some shout outs to Matt Forrest, who did a lot of wonderful work on the project. Brian Kim Johnson, our project manager, who did a fantastic job. Daniel James, principal engineer, who offered some great assistance. And quite a few people at ECC who worked with us. There was Jack Grigg, Dara Hopwood, I think I pronounced that correctly. I never remember, so my apologies. Andre Serrano, Nathan Wilcox, and we left anybody else off. We apologize. So what exactly is our Zcash support level? As mentioned earlier, since 2018, we've supported transparent to transparent withdrawals. And as of last November, with the Canopy hard fork, we supported withdrawals to shielded addresses. Now, a subtle distinction there is that we don't actually support shielded addresses in and of themselves. We just support withdrawing to them. And so basically, with Gemini, you'll see if you're on the block explorer, you'll see what's going into the transaction, but then whatever goes out is shielded. So you won't really see anything unless you're the actual recipient and you can understand what's out there. So there's that. And in order to support that, we ended up using a library called librust Zcash. It's an open source Rust library that implements pretty much all of the cryptography required for supporting sampling outputs in Zcash transactions. And why use it? Well, it's battle tested. It's used all over the Zcash network, and it's been reviewed by many top minds. It just works, so why not use it? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Some of the use cases include constructing transactions that are valid on the network, proving context, reconstructing the output descriptions, parsing outputs, transaction decryptions when given the appropriate key or keying material. So that's cool, but there's a little fly in the ointment. So at Gemini, we're primarily a Scala shop. We use a lot of Scala, and there's a bit of Java, but for the most part, it's Scala that we run. And as some of you know, Scala runs on the JVM, and it can interact directly with the Java ecosystem. So by default, Rust and Java can't talk to each other. But thankfully, there is a solution, and it's the Java native interface. So you can write these special shims that can, when you call them, they can take the input and kind of redirect it into something that Rust can understand, call the Rust code, take the output, and then package it back up such that whoever called it can understand it. And so you're able to use Rust directly behind the scenes. So this works great. And so what happened was we were able to create a small library called Zcash Gemini. And basically, it just takes a few critical calls that we need on our side, and it acts as kind of a glue that calls into those Rust calls, does what Rust does its thing, and then we package up the results and fire it back to whoever called. And special thanks to Jack Grigg for his assistance with that one. In terms of getting it deployed, it's pretty straightforward. It's really simple, actually. Just compile the Rust library, you package it with the Gemini, the Java files, and you put it all in a jar. Very straightforward. And also, this has actually borne some fruit because some code has been donated back to the Zcash Foundation's Zebra project. So in order to help them, in order to give them a JNI too. So this is actually warrants improved. Amy, this was all great because it reduced the scope of the low-level work that was required. Again, you have this battle-tested library that's ready to go, so why not use it? And we didn't have to wait for a Java or a Scala library. We just tapped into it and focus on more important things. And for viewing keys, I'll hand everything off to MD. I will let him present.
Cool. Okay, so viewing keys. Yeah, so I mean, at Gemini, we kind of implemented withdrawals to shield it, as Doug kind of talked about here. So there's actually a few layers to this, how we did this, but some like brief intro to the terminology that we end up using for this. So we're primarily concerned with outgoing viewing keys, or OVKs. So they're pretty long names, so we just refer to them by like the shorthand, OVKs and OCKs. OCKs are the outgoing cipher keys, and like the technical definition to some of these are here, but both of these are pretty much 32-byte keys. The OVK is used to create an output description, which can then be used to derive the OCK. The OCK is unique to a particular shielded output of a transaction, and this is once you actually have the transaction, like for example, in our case, the withdrawal, you can derive the OCK given the OVK. So this is like these two terms, or these two keys, are actually used quite frequently, and the terms on this slides are going to refer to this. And we'll explain like exactly when we use it, and maybe like depending on like how the community ends up like actually implementing these keys. We'll definitely be interested to hear like how you guys are using it, because like as we talk about this, some of this stuff is not really standardized. So like this is really what we ended up implementing. And there's a couple of references here to exactly some of where these are talked about in the spec. So if you want to check that out, you can refer directly to the Zcash protocol spec. And yeah, you want to go to the next slide, Doug? Thanks. Yeah, so the architecture design here that we did was like 3 layers. So prior to supporting shielded withdrawals, we had like our own key meta sequence. Like pretty much all of our crypto is like the cryptography was already in place, and obviously us not having to rewrite some of this crypto was like a really big step forward, and being able to like leverage the existing cryptography that we did have really helped us. So for these keys, you really need to generate these like a 32-byte material, secret material. And so the way our derivation is like kind of structured is like, first you have the root secret. So this root secret is it'll be able to provide some public keys on the SecP 256K1 elliptic curve. So obviously this is like used for a lot of like the Bitcoin Bitcoin is used for Bitcoin, and also the like coins that have forked off it. But obviously now there's like a lot of different curves that are being used. So like prior to some of the recent work we've done, like this is really all we could have supported. And so that's what we leveraged. So the OVK is like the next layer, and these are the keys derived by the root secret. So this is at the account level. So every account in our system gets like designated a OVK. And then the OCK is since it can only reveal information about like a single output of a withdrawal, that's like the level that we have it. Doug, you want to go to the next slide?
By the way, MD, you have about 2 minutes left, ideally.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So pretty much we used the root secret to derive like the OVK, and then this OVK is actually a point on the elliptic curve based on the account, and then the OCK is constructed using the OVK. So there's 2 functions here that in the Zcash library. There's you can actually use these, and they just give you exactly the key you need. Doug, you want to go to the next slide? Yeah, so Gemini actually has all the information about each of like the different details for all the transactions, but the OVK reveals every transaction for an account, and the OCK reveals only just that single withdrawal. Next slide, Doug. Yeah, so this is a lot here, but this is just to say, like, the OVK is never really revealed directly to our customers. We only ever send the OCK, and this is like through the emails. And since you're getting email details anywhere, like transactions, destination amounts, you kind of know all the information. So the OCK will let you generate or let you decrypt that transaction if you like want to know it, or if you run it through some Explorer that supports it. But yeah, the OVK is never revealed. The root secret is obviously never revealed. But obviously Gemini constructed that transaction, so we have like all the details of it. Next slide. Oh yeah, so the fun part, and luckily I think I almost hit the 2-minute mark. We have some like Easter eggs. So if you actually do a withdrawal, a Zcash shielded withdrawal, you'll get a neat memo message per withdrawal that you do, and it's just like chosen from a random list that we have. But yeah, that's like a bit of an intro there to like how we approached shielded withdrawals and outgoing viewing keys in general.
All right, thanks. Yeah, good timing. Yeah, that's really exciting. So let's check now if we have any folks who want to give sort of open mic presentations, and then if we have extra time left over, we could do verbal Q&A. But I also wanted to remind folks that you can ask questions of the presenters in the chat, and I would actually request you use that chat instead of the Q&A feature, because I don't know who can see the Q&A feature. So sorry about that. I'm still learning Zoom. Yeah, so if anyone is interested in giving sort of an open mic presentation, which would be just a 5-minute overview of a project you're working on, and what you wanted to share, or any requests you have from this community, go ahead and post in the chat that you would like to do that, and we can hear from you. And if we don't, let's see, yeah, if we don't hear from anyone soon, we'll just switch to Q&A. I'll give it a minute. So speak up now or forever hold your peace.
I know of the pre-registered responses. We just had Holmes and Elena who replied yes to giving updates. And Holmes, I know you said you weren't prepared to present today, so that's fine. We can keep you on the list for the future if you'd like.
Okay, great. Well, then let's just switch to Q&A. This is actually great because I wanted to do a Q&A. So the first one that was sort of queued up was for Brian, and it was, what are the biggest pain points with Zcash as a currency and Zcash D as a piece of software? Is Brian still here?
He should be. Brian, can you hear us?
Sorry, yes, I can. My headset wasn't working properly. So the question around the pain points of using Zcash, is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both as a currency and the software.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, this may be very highly specific, but I think management of the hard forks, or not hard forks, but the upgrades, was something that we had to constantly monitor. As a decentralized app, it doesn't like automatically handle those kinds of situations, because we use like block book software by Trezor, and so we'd have to constantly monitor that. That's more of a logistical challenge, but in general, it worked as well as Bitcoin. I mean, Actually, no, I guess the only other thing would be like, I think initially we had wanted to use shielded addresses, and because of our multi-sig setup, it wasn't possible initially. We had like 2 of 3 multi-sig contracts essentially to manage the escrow, and so that was something we couldn't tackle right away. But other than that, I mean, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, we weren't really doing anything too overly complex with the crypto itself. So a lot of the challenges were more on the mechanics of the marketplace.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question for MD from Holmes Wilson that says, so you're generating Zcash transactions using lib_Zcash and then sending them to the network using your own tooling? Question mark. Do you use Zcash D or Zebra? And how do you currently accept incoming transparent transactions? Do you use Zcash tooling for this or your own Bitcoinish tooling?
I can hop in for this one.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess previously to supporting shielded work, we still supported transparent Zcash transactions, which we had no use of lib_Zcash, and the only portions of a transaction that we do utilize lib_Zcash for are the shielded parts. So constructing an output description, as well as deriving the viewing keys. Yeah, and then do we use Zcash D or Zebra? We do use Zcash D, but not for like it's really just kind of our interface to the blockchain. So we use it to read blocks, but all of our like transaction construction is not done through that piece of software. It's like custom tooling. So our own wallet. How do we accept incoming transparent transactions? Yeah, I mean, yeah, this one's just kind of we have like a mechanism to generate some like infinite list of addresses that we know we have control over, and we can distribute those to our users as they need addresses to send funds to us. And oh yeah, I think the last one is a little vague, and I feel like I hopefully answered it with the previous ones. But feel free to follow up if there's anything else. Cool.
All right, I have a question for the Gemini team, and it feels like a question I should already know the answer to, but do you know of tools or products that can use OCKs that the customers receive in their email?
Yeah, so I think Sprout, right? Sprout was like the first shielded pool. And there's some block explorers that had support for the Sprout payment disclosures. And as far as I know, this is not really support. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. This is not supported on like for sapling, but I think this is mostly because the zip for payment disclosures is still in draft form. So I think our use of the OCKs and OVKs really is kind of like a preliminary kind of, it's not like a standard. And when it is standardized, I feel like it'll become supported. I guess the only thing that I can think of is I actually wrote a couple of blog posts on my personal website about our usage of these, and I included like a client side tool so you can decrypt these offline if you have the OVK or OCK. So that's kind of the I hope that one day what I wrote on there appears on block explorers.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like Gemini is sort of pushing the frontier on shielded support on sort of the regulatory front and also the technical front at the same time. So that's pretty awesome to see you guys doing that.
Yeah.
So I had another question for Brian, which was, well, I guess two questions. One would be, do you see other projects that are sort of addressing the same goals that Open Bazaar is aiming for, and what might those be? And yeah, so that I'll start with that question for Brian. If he's here, he might be fumbling for the mute button, maybe. Wow.
Paging,
So
Brian.
yeah. Do we have any other questions from the audience? All right, then. I think we can wrap up early. Thank you all for
Oh,
coming
hang
to
on,
another
Nate.
gardening club. Oh, yeah.
Parker's got a question. He just jumped in the chat.
Ooh, oh, great. I love questions. More questions.
Okay, you should be able to see it, Nate. Has Coinbase reached out to anyone at Gemini for any support for implementing their own shielded support?
Not as far as I know. And also, I feel like I probably wouldn't have contacts on that if they did. So I guess maybe. Yeah.
Oh, I have a question for Gemini. Is there any public info about like the volume of transactions that are withdrawing to shielded or the volume that come from shielded deposits?
Yeah, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know a couple of months ago, I believe Andre Serrano, I like pulled some data for him on just kind of the percentages of shielded versus transparent, and they are out somewhere on like the ECC blogs. Some Gemini stats.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll go read our blogs then.
Yeah, I think at the time, if I recall correctly, it was around 11% or 13%. I remember thinking that it was in line with the overall percentage of shielded transactions. So I thought that made sense.
Awesome. And was that like number of withdrawals or amount, like volume of withdrawals?
It would just be like the number of withdrawals, not the amount.
Cool. That's exciting. Let's see, here's another question for Gemini. Are there components of your support for Zcash shielded withdrawals that you think might be good candidates for upstreaming into Libra Zcash?
Yeah, I think I actually did get a PR into Libra Zcash, which was specifically to decrypt an output description with the outgoing Cipher key. There was already the code to do that, but it was private, so I just like made a PR to expose that publicly. But yeah, I mean, we didn't really write anything else in Libra Zcash. Everything else that we wrote was in Scala.
All right. So I think with that, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for coming and giving these presentations. Super interesting. I learned a lot, and it's really exciting to see these kinds of efforts and to share them with the community. So thank you so much.